I am the bone doctor who puts metal in you when you fall. And I can't tell you how many women I have that have a growth mindset, have made their hormone optimization decision, are lifting, are jumping, are working on their balance, are eating a high protein diet with enough fiber, and still their DEXA scan shows osteopenia and they're almost deflated, like, oh my God, what else could I do? That's why we decided to make Unbreakable Bone.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vonda Wright, and this is Hot for Your Health. Join us for conversations on the bleeding edge of science, health, and culture as we bring you tech innovators, thought leaders, and the movers and shakers who are transforming science fiction into your new health reality.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Hot for Your Health, where every week I talk to fascinating people, health innovators, and sometimes friends and collaborators. And this week, we are joined once again by Sanjeev Javia, who has been my friend for 15 or, I don't know, Jeevers, 20 years, co-collaborators on multiple things. But Jeevers, which is what his friends call him, you're a business genius. You have an MBA. You are a master formulator, formulating products for multiple companies. And I'm so lucky that you've now partnered with me once again to formulate for women's health. Because, you know, I go on and on and on, publicly, privately, about the problem of bone health in women. And I'm just going to tell people some statistics which are frightening and which really motivate me. I mean, I stand on these soapboxes saying things like, I am still a practicing orthopedic surgeon, and every time I take call, I am met in the emergency room by women who are manifesting a disease of youth in their old age with a femur fracture. 70% of all people who have femur fractures are women. And do you know what happens? The minute, Jeevers, they land on the ground like that, the minute they do that, they have a 30% chance of dying. And if they survive the fall and the immediate aftermath, 50% of the time, they do not return to the home where they came from. And those are devastating statistics because we probably all have a woman in our life that we know that has gone through this. Now, this also happens for men. Honestly, 2 million men in this country have osteoporosis. But here's the thing about osteoporosis, which means holes in the bone. We can prevent it. We should have prevented it, except we never stepped in front of it early enough because we laid down peak bone density in our late 20s. And if we never lay down enough, then we hit perimenopause where our estrogen plummets and we can lose another 15 to 20% of our bone density. So that we arrive in mid-age and beyond behind the 8 ball. And you know what? We try our best. I try my best, but none of us are perfect. And so that's why you and I formulated Unbreakable Bone, so that we do every single thing possible to build better bone. And I have 8 tools for building bone, and this is just one of them. So what got you interested, besides me harping at you, on building better bone from a formulation standpoint? Why is the story of being able to nutritionally augment the best we can with whole anti-inflammatory foods? What made that interesting to you?
You know, I think what it was is what is the biggest reason why people are so interested now in bone because of you is that I thought bone was mainly for structural purposes. It was to hold up our body. It was for our muscles to be attached. I didn't look at muscles as an organ. I didn't understand all of the things that you were talking about, how how bone drives hormones and how bone drives neurological connection and how bone drives all of these different things, and looking at it simply as really it's an organ. And if you lose this bone density, it's not just about losing the structural component, that keeps you up and allows you to move, but it causes all of these other huge downstream effects from your brain all the way to your blood vessels.
So, just in case anybody's wondering what the heck, absolutely. I think the most fascinating part of bone is not just that it's literally the backbone of our bodies, it is, or the backbone of our mobility. But to your point, I talk all the time about bone is the storehouse, it's the grocery store of our body, right? Everything, all the minerals we take into our guts, stored in the bone. It's got to be stored somewhere until our body needs it for chemical processes. Storehouse. It is an incubator. All of our blood cells are made in our pelvis and our femur, our long bones. That's amazing, right? Bone is an endocrine organ. It's not just silent. Bone is the master communicator. It produces hormones like osteocalcin and LCN2, which are critical for things like satiety, i.e., are you hungry anymore? Bone does that. It's critical for glucose metabolism and insulin secretion. It has a direct relationship with our gut. So the nutrition we eat, and as good as we try to be, the bone knows what the gut is absorbing because it has a direct relationship. Bone produces these hormones that go to our brain, Jeevers, and helps us build better brains. Bone is so fascinating, and I call it the master communicator because if I was designing a human that needed a communication system throughout the whole body, why wouldn't I use a structure that's in the whole body from the top of our heads to the bottom of our feet? Bone. I mean, so we are meticulously designed, and bone is central to communication. And yet, we ignore it or we don't listen to it. Maybe because we don't know how to listen to it. It's not that it's not speaking to us. We just don't know how to listen.
Well, we don't think about it. Let me give you a perfect example. Unfortunately, I've got a friend at the moment who is going through some cancer therapy or treatment, and he's going to need a bone marrow. He needs to go get this, life-giving, nutrition from not the kidneys, not the muscle, not the, fat. It's coming from bone. And so I think that's what it is that bone has never been sexy. It's never been a sexy thing, unless for those individuals who truly understood bone. This is why if you were to ask me over the 21 years that I've developed products, and I've developed over 380 different products, is that maybe there's been 2 that I've developed that were relating to bone health. Sure, I could give you 30 of them that I've developed for weight loss. I could give you a whole set that I've developed for joint health, for brain health, for all of these things. They're real performance products, building muscle, doing all that. Those are sexy things. But just like you said, is that nobody appreciates the bone until something happens. It's like cardiovascular. You don't really think about inflammation in your blood vessels and things like that until a cardiac event. Problem is, as you mentioned, is that once that event happens, it's really, really hard to get you back to baseline or to have some level of quality of life. Yeah. And the thing that's different with bone than even cardiovascular health is that I can do some things to get you back going, right? It's not so fatal, if you will, but with bone, it is, just like you mentioned those statistics. I mean, the other statistic that you had mentioned that I didn't even think about is that even if you are able to get a level of repair and recovery after this fracture, 50% may not even go back home. Like you're still at the hospital. Those are the things that you don't really think about. And then the other piece of it that I didn't really think a lot about is all of the different ways in which you would lose bone density. Yeah. And I don't think people really get that. I don't think I ever got, oh my gosh, my niece who's, turning 21 here this week, wait a second, sure, she might play soccer, at university, but how long has she been playing soccer? She's been playing soccer ever since she was 5 years old. She hasn't been eating amazing. She's a girl, so that she is, susceptible to being thin and staying thin and not eating so much. So I'm thinking, well, wait a second. All of this time in which she was to build peak bone density because of some of the other things that she was, susceptible to, she may not have been building bone density, or as much. And it's all the way to the fact that if you've had some sort of illness, and I'm not just talking about cancer and chemotherapy. I'm talking about any type of illness. I'm talking about being overweight. I'm talking about diabetes. I'm talking about all of those things that could have led to lower bone density. So why wouldn't you do these small little things that, doesn't take a lot of energy, doesn't take a lot of resources, doesn't take a lot of all that sort of stuff, so that you can build this bone? That's why I'm super excited to be able to be one piece in your 8, shield level of
8 shields, yeah. I want to go back to something you were saying, just to give people a framework where we're going. I'm going to go back and add more detail to what you just said about building bone across a lifespan. And then I want to talk about the 8 shields for building better bone, and why, even though we think we're doing all the things, sometimes it's not enough. Because I treat women every day who come in and say, but I'm doing all the things, right? So bone health, because it's my goal to make bone sexy. Every stage I'm on, I'm carrying my femur. I'm like, we're going to talk about bone today. Because listen, without bone, Jeevers, muscle is just a heaping pile of smoking tissue, right? It's like a chicken breast on the counter. It can't pull on anything. It can't exert force. It can't make you move, but together. So that, that's another reason bone is sexy. So why might not your niece, 21, healthy, varsity soccer player, have laid down enough bone? Well, there's a lot of reasons. Number one, girls are still living under the myth that they need to be teeny tiny and therefore don't eat, right? And so sometimes we're so undercaloried, either by not eating or burning so many calories with our exercise, our sports, our varsity sports, and not feeding, that we live in a constant state of something called relative energy deficiency syndrome, which results in not having periods. We have to have a certain amount of body fat for our body to feel healthy enough to ovulate, to have a period, and that's what helps us produce estrogen. So I was a dancer when I grew up, and I wouldn't have periods for 6 to 9 months. I didn't know any better, and I was like, yes, because it's a pain in the butt. But had I known how important that is to my lifelong health, I might have cared more. So that's number one. Either we're not eating or we're underfeeding. Another reason young girls might not build enough bone is because we're raising a generation of sedentary people, right? Everybody's very digital, sitting around. Bones require bashing and movement to build. So then you've got young girls not building enough bone, not reaching a good peak bone mass. And then what happens? Well, for women who decide to have children, it takes about 500 milligrams of calcium a day to build a baby. And if we're not intaking enough, our body's going to take it from our own bones. That's the way we're designed. Now, the good news is we are also designed to rebuild our bones in pregnancy, but only if we're eating enough and getting enough good nutrition, right? And then if we decide to breastfeed, and hear me, I'm all for breastfeeding. I breastfed, my daughter Bella, we were all about that. That takes more calcium that you must replace nutritionally. But if you don't, you leave your bones at a deficit. And there's a thing called the osteoporosis of pregnancy that many people don't know about. So we might not build enough bone. We might then use bone and not replace it with our children. And then we reach perimenopause, when estrogen goes away and the balance between bone breakdown and bone building becomes unbalanced. And we break down more than we build, such that you can lose 3 times the bone during perimenopause, 15 to 20%. So imagine you don't build enough bone, then you don't rebuild bone during pregnancy, and then perimenopause happens. No wonder I find so many women with osteopenia or osteoporosis. And they're doing all the good things, right? I will stop talking because we're going to talk about how we're going to get in front of this. But there are 8 shields that I commonly teach about that we're going to do a bone series on my YouTube channel. So people should come back and watch that. The 8 things are pivoting our mindset to know that we can influence our future. Number 2, making our hormone optimization decision. Number 3, lifting weights. Number 4, impacting our bones, jumping around. Number 5, working on our balance. And number 6, foot speed, so we don't fall over. Because, sometimes we're fine until we fall. That's when we break. Number 7, eating a anti-inflammatory, high-protein diet. And then realizing that we're all doing the best we can. I mean, I do the very best I can. I'm doing all those things. And sometimes I'm not perfect. That's why we've developed number 8, which is Unbreakable Bone. And this wasn't just a bunch of stuff thrown together. You mainly, but you and I toiled 9 months to get this right.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, is that so many of these types of products, they might focus on some key nutrients like vitamin D or calcium, right? They look at certain elements of collagen and things like that. But what we wanted to do with Unbreakable Bone was, number 1, the main thing is to focus it. A lot of products are bone and joint or bone and skin or bone and this or whatever. No. Listen, we wanted to design something that was specifically for promoting bone density, bone strength, bone quality, as you always mention. And I love the definition of what you have for bone quality. And really make sure that when someone was taking this, that they were taking it for that specific purpose, and then they were going to get incredible benefits in that area, even though you may have found those nutrients to be beneficial in other areas. How this product was designed was for these nutrients to specifically go in this area, so we could build that bone density and that bone strength, that bone flexibility, as you talk about. So you had a high quality, as you mentioned.
So there are really 3 pillars of support in Unbreakable Bone. First, understanding that bone is 50% protein in the form of collagen. We needed to augment that. Knowing that a big component of bone, the actual the scaffold, the lattice of bone, this is what it looks like on the inside, is made out of something called hydroxyapatite. In fact, in the OR, we take hydroxyapatite that's been purified and mix it up in a putty and put it to heal bone. The body uses it. Hydroxyapatite. So that's the second pillar of Unbreakable Bone. But the third pillar of Unbreakable Bone is a myriad of micronutrients that I'm going to tell you we are probably not getting from our poor quality soil in this country. So can you talk us through those 3 main pillars?
Yeah, you bet. And that's exactly the case, is that, what we talked about earlier is that, listen, this is a true supplement. It's a supplement to the existing diet that you have. And we wish that you could get a lot of these nutrients in the concentrations and the type of nutrients in the foods that you consume, right? But unfortunately, we just can't, not everyone can. It's really hard to, especially when you're dealing with being at such a, deficiency already, either because you've already been diagnosed with the deficiency or you're living a lifestyle in which, unfortunately, unknowingly, you are at a deficiency, right? So the first piece of it, which is, I love what you talk about, the scaffolding, right? First, you got to build the scaffolding, and that scaffolding is really collagen. So what we have in Unbreakable Bone is 5 grams. So we have 5 grams of a specific type of collagen. I know many people are taking collagen. I take collagen, and there's all these different, types, type 1, type 2, type 5, type 3, and all that sort of stuff, right? Well, this particular bioactive collagen called Vonda is specifically designed to promote that bone growth and that bone density. It is a type of collagen that has been clinically researched, and that was a big thing that we wanted to do as you being a medical professional, as understanding the value of clinical research, because there are a lot of products out on the market who have a really good philosophy. They've got good nutrients. They may have okay dosages and such, but there is no clinical work that's been done, with any of those ingredients. And that was why it was very critical for us to kind of have that. So the first element is to build that scaffolding using this bioactive collagen, using the clinical dose of that bioactive collagen to promote that bone density and that bone growth and that bone formation. And then, as you mentioned, making sure that we then put things on that scaffolding. And the two main things, obviously, is microcrystalline hydroxyapatite, which is not an ingredient a lot of people know of, because, you don't see it in a lot of products because they're not focused on bone. They're focused on maybe bone and maybe some other things as well, too. And secondly, it's not something like a vitamin D or a vitamin K2 or whatever, right? But this is such an incredible ingredient because it is, as you mentioned, like bone powder, okay, right? It essentially is a natural source of what your bone consists of. So not only are you getting collagen in microcrystalline hydroxyapatite, because that's what's in bone, but you're also getting minerals. You're a lot, specifically the calcium and the phosphorus and the magnesium and such. And the cool thing about this way of getting your minerals is these minerals are already encompassed in its most natural matrix. And that's a wonderful way to get any type of nutrients, right? This is why, vitamin C from an orange is always going to be better than vitamin C in an extracted supplement, because there's 180 bioactive components in that orange that's allowing that vitamin C to work better. Well, that's why when you were mentioning, listen, Jeevers, we want to make sure that we add a very dense, concentrated amount of minerals, because minerals is what makes up a lot of bone. But let's go get it from these natural sources. Let's make sure that it's in this natural matrix so that all of these other smaller components may be attributing to the value of that absorption of those minerals. Because there's a lot of times in which individuals are taking nutrients, but they're not in the most absorbable forms. And a lot of times people will say, well, there's this certain type of mineral or certain type of vitamin or certain type of technology that you can put around a nutrient to make it more absorbable. But the best way to do it is just keep it in its most natural form. Keep it in its form in which the body's actually using and is already made so that it's using. So that's what we did with the microcrystalline hydroxyapatite for some of these minerals. But then the cool thing along with those nutrients is that it also has natural bone growth factors, waking up the bone and getting the bone to be like, hey, listen, let's get on a growth phase rather than hanging out on this kind of phase in which we're in a breakdown. And bones need that. Bones need the ability to kind of get woken up because they're not in that state, and they need it from the nutrition if it does, right? And then we added a whole nother set of minerals.
Right.
And this is, it's called Aquamin. It is another clinically researched, ingredient that is a natural source of 74 trace and ultra trace minerals. And I'm a big believer, I've always been a big believer in minerals and trace and ultra trace minerals. One of my great mentors, taught me a long time ago, starting from what you were saying, is that, listen, Jeevers, at the very end of the day, minerals are needed for so many different, they're cofactors in so many metabolic reactions. The only way to get our minerals is through our soil. But unfortunately, the way that we grow food, the way that we farm food, the way that we process food, the way that we store food, the way that we, a lot of the minerals are from foods that most people don't enjoy consuming because they're plant-based. And so it's a lot of the vegetables and things like that. So you're not getting all of these nutrients, specifically these minerals, and therefore you're not getting all of this efficiency and optimization of all of these metabolic functions. But on top of that, you're not able to get this bone to be able to be storing these minerals, if you will, and growing due to these minerals. So one of the things that we use is a natural source of 74 trace and ultra trace minerals that is a calcified sea algae. So this sea algae comes from the pristine waters of Iceland, and we take this red sea algae, which has all of these minerals from the sea, higher amounts obviously of calcium and such, right? And we take that and we then put that into the unbreakable bone. So now you've got, that's just the 3 Intel chips that we've put in the unbreakable bone. But then on top of that, you've got the vitamin D, you've got the vitamin K2, you've got the magnesium, you've got all of these other nutrients, because we know that those nutrients also allow their cofactors, if you will, for the absorption of nutrients into the bone and the regulation of those nutrients into bone. And as you were mentioning earlier, they may not play a direct source, vitamin D may not play a direct source in the building of bone, but indirectly, they're incredibly valuable. And the thing is that a lot of times when people develop products like this, there's ratios that you have to make sure are correct. Because if you over vitamin, and this is the careful thing you want to do if you're taking individual nutrients, because some people say, they hear like, calcium's really great for me for my bones, so I'll take that. Vitamin D is really good, so I'll take that. And then they don't realize, well, wait a second, they might be taking way too much vitamin D that's actually allowing calcium to leak from the bone. And a lot of times, this is why you're not getting the benefit from the product that you're taking or the products that you're taking when it's relating to bone health, because it's not as simple as like muscle. It's much more complex. You have to make sure that you're taking the right nutrients in the right dosages, in the right forms, if you're looking to build that greater bone and that bone health,
And what I like is that the 3 pillars that we've chosen, especially the calcified Icelandic red algae, is that because it exists in nature, nature has made the ratios appropriate versus me taking this pill, that pill. Because everyone who's heard me talk knows that I like people to get their calcium, for instance, from food. But when we take a naturally existing substrate, nature has balanced it for us. And that's why I love the philosophy of this product. And that's why I only formulate with you. Because frankly, I'm going to tell you, we don't white label things. We just don't take somebody else's product and slip my label on it. No, these are crafted around a philosophy, a set of goals, a set of data. Fortibone builds both spine, hip, and pelvic bone that we have documentation for. We're building around a philosophy, not just slapping a label on something. And so if that kind of thoughtfulness is important to the people that we serve, that's why we go to the trouble. That's why it took us 9 months to think through all of this, right?
Yeah, and another piece of that is we're seeing more and more of this, because right now the supplement industry is probably at one of its peaks because everybody's talking about it. You know what I mean, right? And duly noted, we're all trying to gain the most out of our health. We want performance, right? We're seeing all of these things that we want to do, especially different than maybe our parents, right? Like we want to travel and we want to work out and we want to play with our grandkids. We all want to do all of these things that require mobility, that require strength.
Yeah.
And so therefore now, along with a lot of what you're educating the public about, like, whoa, wait, guys, it's not just structural, it's an organ. You got to think about all of these other things. People are really focused on making sure that they're doing everything they can for this bone density. So there's a lot of products out there.
Yeah.
But then you don't know if these products have been tested. You have no idea how these products have been formulated. There's no faces behind many of them.
Yeah.
And they could be coming internationally. And you just sent me an article just a little bit ago, which is, hey, listen, a lot of these international or foreign products, they're not even, testing out. They're not, they don't even have the nutrients that are listed on the label. I talk about this one, the most recent one for berberine. They literally, took 32 samples that they purchased online, and they found 6 of them literally had 0. By the way, 31 of them out of the 32 did not hit the label claim. Either they were too much or too less. And then there was 6 of them that didn't even have berberine in there. That happens all the time in our industry. And so that's why it was so important that we're saying, hey, listen, what people are really looking for from us is hope. That's what they're looking for. They want hope. They want to be, able to say, hey, maybe, I haven't done everything that I could have to be able to build this bone density and this bone health and this bone quality. I really now recognize it was very important for me to do so. I want to do something about it, but can you please make sure that, you're a steward of not just my health, but also my dollars, right? And please make sure that you can develop something that has the greatest chance of being successful for me, because the result is going to matter a lot. So that's why making sure that we did potency testing for every one of our ingredients, making sure that we did the testing before and after our product, making sure that we had all of the clinical dosages that we needed to be in the product, making sure that all of the ingredients were ratioed right, so you had the maximal absorption, because like I said, a lot of people take ththese nutrients, but they don't retain them in the bone. So now what use is it? It doesn't make any use. And then, like you said, hey, you got to have patience and you have to have consistency. With bone especially, you must have consistency. It doesn't unfortunately grow overnight or in a week, and sometimes in a month. So you have to be able to want to be consistent. That's why we made it a drink. That's why we took so long to put all these nutrients and make sure that it tastes good and it's refreshing and then it's easy to mix, because we knew that if we did do that, then you would look forward to drinking it every day. And when you looked forward to drinking it every day, not only would you have this amazing experience where you're like, wow, this is really great, it tastes good, it's fun, but then that compounding effect would then give you the result that you really desired, which was to have great bone.
Well, and I know that I bugged the heck out of you about, we need to assemble it here. We need to know where all the things come from. We need to really be fastidious. And just to tell people how fastidious we were, Peter, whose company puts all of our ingredients together, he's a real guy. He called me the other day. He's like, let's have coffee and discuss this product, because we're so invested, not monetarily, but invested in high quality work. So it makes me feel good because I know people trust me, and that's the number one thing to me. So I love that we're built on 3 pillars. I love that we've decided to build on naturally occurring algae and hydroxyapatite, the things that naturally occur. So the ratios are right. And I've been showing people on social media how to drink this stuff. I mean, we toiled on taste and we chose one that feels kind of festive to me, but So you can just put it in a bottle of water and chug it. You can do that. It tastes great that way. I've been playing around with making mocktails out of it, like because it kind of tastes festive like that. Maybe putting a little soda water in it, just because health doesn't have to be boring, you know? And so I'm just encouraged, because here's the deal. I take care of so many people still. I'm a practicing surgeon, and I get DEXA scans on everybody. And I can't tell you how many women I have that have a growth mindset, have made their hormone optimization decision, are lifting, are jumping, are working on their balance, are eating a high protein diet with enough fiber. They are eliminating toxins such as nicotine and vaping, and they've may or may not stopped drinking alcohol, all of which are bone toxic. But they come back and still their DEXA scan shows osteopenia, and they're almost deflated, like, oh my God, what else could I do? Well, that's why we decided to make Unbreakable Bone, because in a place where you're trying to do your very best, how else could we augment, not substitute? This is never going to be a substitute for smart anti-inflammatory nutrition. Never. And if that's why you're thinking about taking it, just stop, turn away, because I want you to eat whole, fresh foods first. But the reality is sometimes when we're even doing our best, we're not getting enough. And so I am so desperate for women not to suffer that I'm willing to formulate. I'm willing to take the criticism that I'm taking for trying to augment nutrition, because I am tired of seeing women suffer. I am the bone doctor who puts metal in you when you fall, trying to save your life. And I'm desperate to fill all the gaps. If I don't know if this is a good analogy, tell me what you think. If bone health is a glass jar and we're putting in the rock that represents our decisions, and the rock that represents hormone optimization, and all the big pebbles that are the weightlifting, the jumping, the balance, there's still space around those rocks. So I think Unbreakable Bone pours into that like sand to fill in all the places that we might have missed, because I'm just tired of women suffering at the hands of a problem, osteoporosis, that could have been prevented.
Yeah, I love that analogy, because I think of the word fortifying. We're fortifying, right? We no question. It's kind of like if I were to say, you know what? I keep working out all the time. Mm-hmm. Like I lift weights, I run, I do all this sort of stuff, but I don't know why I'm not gaining any weight. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I'm not gaining any muscle. The first question that you would ask me is that, well, are you eating? Are you feeding this thing? Mm-hmm. Because you can't just make something out of nothing. Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes that's what we're doing, is we're trying to think that we can make something out of nothing. So you can do all of those things, but the jumping and the resistance training and but do remember that requires fuel. It requires fuel. So please try to get it from your nutrition. Yeah. And if you can, then awesome. No worries at all. Yeah. If you can get all these nutrients, awesome. But if you can't, like you mentioned, then let's go make sure that the nutrients that you are taking are specific for the reasons why you're taking them. And that's why I want to make sure everyone understands, because I've talked to other people about this, and they'll look at the ingredients and they'll say, "Oh, this is so great. It'll help this and it'll help that." No.
It's bone.
No. We developed this specifically. If you're not looking to promote and enhance bone density and bone strength and bone flexibility and bone quality, I'm not the right product for you. I'm a great product, but I'm not the right product for you. Then you go get something else, and please make sure that it's targeted nutrition, because it's all right to take a multivitamin when it's general for your body. But when you're looking for something for specific, and it's targeted, then look for that targeted supplement. Don't look for something that does, it's a 3-in-1 or a 2-in-1, because listen, I've been formulating for 21 years. Trust me when I say that when I develop something that is a 2-in-1 or 3-in-1, I'm doing a lot of things good and nothing great. And depending on what you need, you might need something great.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then hey, look, this is what we've tried to accomplish here, right?
Absolutely.
And so,
yeah. Along those lines, I would never encourage any kind of nutritional augment for bone if you're not also lifting or jumping. I mean, I would, but I'm just saying there's no magic bullet. You have to do the work if you want to live healthy longer and to age with power. We must use the tool of muscle. We must use the tool of impact. We must use the tool of smart anti-inflammatory nutrition. We must detoxify, and then we must give the very basic nutrients we need to fill in around those activities. I think another interesting point about what we're doing here, because again, we built this around a philosophy, not just white labeling some random thing. There's nothing else that exists like this because we made this, right, with a purpose. But we're also not going to give it to people one bottle at a time. We made the decision that research shows to change bone and to have measurable change, we need about 6 months of compliance. Preferably a year, but a minimum of 6 months of compliance. So if we just try something random for a month, we're not going to see any outcome because it's just not long enough. It takes 10 years, a decade, to completely remodel your whole skeleton. It's such a slow building and remodeling process. So in order to build better bone, not only to make up for the loss of bone, but maybe even to build more on top of that, it's a process. And so we're not actually giving you one bottle at a time, so it's a month and done. Because that's just, I don't want to lie to you. It's probably going to take 6 months. So we settled on a 3-month supply, knowing that you need 6 months to really affect bone change. And that was a conscious decision. That was probably not a business decision. That was a health preservation decision. What did you think about that when I first introduced that idea to you?
That follows exactly your philosophy. That is who you are. If you're not willing to do these things, we understand. But just know that if you don't do these things, you won't be able to fully embrace all of the things that I'm telling. You've done this for your entire career. You do this with the 8 shields. And so it's the same thing here. Listen, if you want to do something on the nutritional end to really help to see that trend and to see that growth and to see that building, then at the very minimum, commit yourself to 90 days. And if you're not willing to commit yourself for 90 days, it's okay.
It is.
But we're not going to be left with the guilt of you not being able to achieve those goals because we offered it to you in a lesser of a time, right? And it just is, it may not have been the best business decision because a lot of people would just be like, well, I just want to try it and I'll spend, whatever for a canister and not spend, for the next 2 months or whatever, or 3 months or whatever, right? But at the very end of the day, I think that this is something in which, listen, if you can't find that dedication in this realm, it's okay. I hope that you can find dedication in other things, meaning, hey, eat really healthy and make sure that you get to your workouts and make sure you get a hormonal plan, But if you're going to now settle on this because we are one of the last ones, we're not telling you, this is the thing about companies. that's, and we're not here to judge, but what they'll say is well, you don't have to do this,
Oh no.
and you can just do ours,
Right.
right?
I'm not saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, basically what they're saying is see these very difficult things and inconvenient things or things that you're not comfortable with. It's okay to stay uncomfortable. It's okay to not be inconvenienced. It's okay to not, because we found you a solution so that you don't have to. That's not us. That's not Dr. Vonda. That's not Unbreakable. That's not myself. We're saying, hey, listen, do all of these things the best you can. And when all of a sudden you've said, hey, I've done it the best that I can.
Yeah.
Then,
that's
hey,
right.
guess what? We'll be able to create an even bit of a catalyst. We'll be able to elevate those things that you did so that you can get, another 20 yards and 30 yards, which makes a huge difference, right? So,
You know what? People always ask me, what is the most important thing that people need to understand about their health? And I think that when I'm on podcasts, they expect me to say the lifting, the jumping, the blah, blah, blah. I never go to that because I don't think it's the most important thing. I think the most important thing is what you and I have been talking about. It is the understanding that you are worth the daily investment in your health. You are worth the work. You are not worth shortcuts. You are worth the work. It's not me giving you another list of things to do. It's me saying, as your doctor, or as your Instagram advice doctor, not your actual doctor, although some of you are my patients, I believe that you are worth the consistency that comes, or I believe that you are worth the health that comes with the consistency of the work. And so Unbreakable Bone, honestly, was meant as, we call it, a nutritional augment, not your nutrition plan, an augment to fill in around the work that you're doing, knowing that every single day in my clinic, I get women who are doing the darndest they can, the best they can, and still have bones that are not going to support them into their aging. And I want to hedge all bets. And that's why designing Unbreakable Bone with 3 distinct pillars using natural ingredients existing in nature, collagen, hydroxyapatite, calcified red algae from Iceland that come in balanced proportions of micronutrients, structural nutrients, collagen, it feels good to me.
yeah. And then, like, I know all of these things are really wonderful, but I just can't wait for people to taste it. I can't wait for them to.
Okay, so when you put it in water, it turns out to be a little pinky orange. It tastes like something very tropical. That's why I've been showing people how to make mocktails out of it. Like, it's not a medicine, it's an augment. So it can be fun like that. You can, next time you have your book club or your girlfriends over, make them mocktails with a little Unbreakable Bone in it because it tastes that good. In fact, we launched this at Women's Health Conversations last week. It's our big 1,000-person Women's Health Summit, which is transformational, by the way. To a person, people coming away from the booth where we were launching it, they're like, oh, Vaughn, it tastes so good, right?
Yeah, and they couldn't believe, that it's 0 grams of sugar, right? The only calories, the 20 calories that we have come from protein. It comes from the collagen. So the only calories that we've got is coming from the collagen, that we don't use anything artificial, no artificial colors, artificial flavors, artificial sweeteners. It mixes really great. Like, it's just a super clean product. Mm-hmm. And then it has this kind of, we use kind of a combination of a pineapple, guava, mango-like flavor.
Like fresh? Yeah, it's very fresh,
tropical.
actually.
Yeah,
it's very fresh.
And you can drink it any time of day
Yeah.
because of the ingredients in the product. They're not stimulating, they're not anything. You can drink it any time of day. And, one of the times that my sister, myself, my dad, who's 86 years old, my niece, who's 21 years old, we're all drinking Unbreakable Bone. We actually drink it at night. And we drink it about, a fun little fact, about 2.5, 3 hours before bed, your body has a little bit of an uptick in recovery nutrients. Your immune system has an uptick. And so, one of the things that I'm obviously drinking the Unbreakable Bone for is for repair, recovery, regeneration of bone health. So why wouldn't I drink it, right at that time? And then also do remember is that these minerals, specifically the naturally sourced calcium and magnesium, which, by the way, we're using naturally sourced magnesium as well as magnesium the glycinate, which is
sleeping.
A fantastic magnesium that helps to calm the nervous system, which then causes you to have deeper sleep. I mean, there's a lot of really cool pieces to this, because of that.
Well, let me ask you a question. I've never asked you this before. Can I put this in hot tea? Or should I only drink it cold?
No, you can put it into hot tea as well too. You do want to be careful of just how hot, you put any type of nutrients in, right? I think that with the collagen, it just becomes, you don't denature necessarily collagen from, it's got to be very hot, like super hot. Usually when you're running like a production facility and you're doing pasteurization, that's like super, super hot temps. You don't necessarily throw collagen into that, what I mean?
No, but if I put this in, it's winter now. And in the winter, I drink more hot tea than I do coffee in the summer for whatever reason. But if I put this in hot tea and make a little bit fruity, that's what I was thinking. It would be fine. Because I'm thinking of all the ways to get this in, other than just a bottle of water, shaking it up like a mocktail, putting it in hot tea. I mean, I'm excited that we've launched it. The women who have used it already are excited about it, not because of the taste, but because of the promise. I love the philosophy it was built on, 3 pillars, natural ingredients. But the heart and soul of why we decided to do this, why we toiled for 9 months to get it right, is because sometimes women are doing everything right, and their bones still are weaker and will not support them. And I'm tired of women suffering. So we're going to do everything we can for them. So anything in closing that we've missed? We've covered the why. We've covered the 8 shields of building better bone and how this is the 8th that fills in a complete program. We've talked about commitment. We're not doing 1 bottle at a time. It takes about 3 to 6 months, really 6 months to build better bone. And we're going to start with 3 at a time, just, because 6 is cumbersome. I mean, every step of this has a philosophy, Jeevers, right? Anything we've missed?
I think just the last piece is that know that, with this, introduction of this product, we're going to further, surround it with materials to help you to live better, right? And so I think that's one of the key things is that, when you said, hey, Jeevers, we're going to build this product, we're going to build this product enveloped in education and community and, giving this type of, knowledge so that it creates a movement, that it's not just the product, it's about a movement. So get ready to see a lot more of that sort of stuff, and get ready to see some kind of exclusive things that we're going to be delivering to our Unbreakable Bone health community,
Like live events and virtual events and courses. I don't want to titillate people too much, but it's exciting because I am out to make bone not only sexy again, but healthy. That people understand it. They understand the value, that it literally, not figuratively, but literally and figuratively, is the backbone of society. So Sanjeev Javia, my formulator partner in this, we were talking today about Unbreakable Bone, which we've just released. So all the information will be in the show notes. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us on Hot for Your Health, where we bring you conversations from the bleeding edge of science, health, and culture. You can find links from today's show and connect with me at drvondawright.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Dr. Vonda Wright. See you next week.